Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is June 9th. On this day in 1995, 6-year-old Morgan Nick disappeared while playing just feet away from her mother at a Little League game in Alma, Arkansas. The case sparked one of the biggest child abduction investigation in the state's history and eventually led to the creation of Arkansas's Morgan Nick Amber Alert system. For decades, her disappearance was a mystery until a major development in 2024 brought new hope. Today, we'll look back at the night Morgan vanished, the man who may have taken her, and the mother who turned heartbreak into lasting change. Let's get started. June 9th, 1995 was a warm Friday night in Alma, Arkansas, a small, close-knit town near Fort Smith. 6-year-old Morgan Nick, a curious and thoughtful little girl with bright blue eyes and blonde hair, didn't really want to go out that night. She'd begged her mom, Colleen, to stay home. But Colleen gently persuaded her, promising the Little League game at Wofford Field would be fun. And it was. The bleachers were packed, families chattered, kids ran around, and Morgan sat beside her mom, watching the game stretch into the late evening. Around 10:30 p.m., Morgan asked Colleen if she could go catch fireflies with 2 other kids, 5-year-old Ty and 10-year-old Jessica. But Colleen hesitated. Morgan was little, and it was getting late, but it was close by, the other kids were going to, and she didn't want to say no. So she agreed and reminded Morgan to stay nearby. Morgan played for a little while and then walked to the car with Jessica so that she could dump sand from her shoes. But that moment would be the last time that Morgan was ever seen. By 10:45, the game had ended. Jessica and Ty came back, but Morgan didn't. At first, Colleen just assumed her daughter had wandered a little too far. But as seconds ticked into minutes and Morgan still hadn't returned, her worry turned into dread. Something was wrong. Within an hour, law enforcement was on the scene. Police, volunteers, and worried parents combed the area. Eventually, search dogs were brought in and a helicopter flew overhead. Colleen, overwhelmed with panic, searched every inch of the park, calling Morgan's name. Witnesses later described seeing a red Ford pickup truck with a white camper shell parked nearby. It had a dull, weathered paint job and a loud muffler. Behind the wheel was a white man in his late 20s to early 30s with long brown hair and a mustache. Some said he'd been talking to kids around the time that Morgan disappeared, but nobody knew who he was. Sketches of the man and his truck were quickly released to the public. Police treated it as a likely abduction from the start. But even with the fast response, Morgan was gone. And for years, that sad fact would remain unchanged. The days turned into weeks, and then months, then years. Morgan's disappearance became one of the most high-profile cases that Arkansas had ever seen. The FBI, Arkansas State Police, and the Alma Police Department launched a joint task force. Her photo appeared on billboards, flyers, and even milk cartons across the country. Her case aired on America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries. Every tip was run down, and some seemed promising, like a 2002 dig at a Boonville property, but nothing ended up panning out. In 2010, investigators started looking closely at a man named Billy Jack Lynx, a convicted child predator. He died in prison a decade earlier while serving time for unrelated charges. But here's the thing. He owned a red Ford pickup just like the one described at the scene. In 2021, police named Lynx as a person of interest. Then, in 2024, a major breakthrough changed everything. DNA analysis from Morgan's belongings linked back to Lynx's truck. It was the clearest forensic connection that investigators had found. Authorities now believe that Links may have been the one who abducted Morgan Nick that night. Though he can't be charged because he's been dead for about 25 years, it brought a long-awaited piece of the puzzle into place. While police searched for answers, Morgan's mom became something more than just a grieving parent. Colleen Nick turned her pain into purpose. Just months after Morgan vanished, she launched the Morgan Nick Foundation, which is dedicated to supporting families of missing children and preventing future abductions. Over the years, she's worked with lawmakers, advocated with law enforcement, and spoken at schools across Arkansas. And her efforts have helped shape how the state responds to child abductions. In 2001, Arkansas introduced its own version of the Amber Alert system, naming it after Morgan. In an interview, Colleen told reporters, quote, "Morgan's case changed everything. If her name can help save another child, then her life still has purpose," end quote. Through the foundation, Colleen has supported countless families, pushing for policy reform and continuing the work day in and day out. As of June 9th, 2025, Morgan Nick has been missing for 30 years. She would be 36 years old now. Her profile remains active in the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and age-progressed images have been regularly released. Following the 2024 DNA development, police renewed their push for answers. While Links remains the main suspect, investigators haven't ruled out the possibility that others may have been involved, or that someone out there still knows more than they've said. Morgan's case remains open, and Colleen Nick remains a force. She still leads the Morgan Nick Foundation, offering hope to families who've experienced the same nightmare and making sure that no one forgets her daughter. We've covered Morgan's story on my Missing Persons podcast, And Then They Were Gone. If you'd like to listen to a more in-depth episode on Morgan's story, I urge you to check it out. It originally aired on March 10th, 2021, but we re-released it on October 5th, 2024, after all the news about Billy Jack Links came out. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this right now. Morgan Nick disappeared in a matter of minutes, but her story has carried on for 3 decades. Her case reshaped how Arkansas and much of the country responds to missing children. It inspired new systems, changed laws, and saved lives. And through her mother's voice, Morgan's name continues to shine as a symbol of strength, resilience, and unwavering love. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Morgan's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day, True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!